Hello and welcome to our final installment of our coffee talks for the 2018-2019 year. Today, we're talking a little bit about easing the college transition so that we can help relieve maybe some of the stress that you and your son are feeling as you're looking ahead at this very momentous and exciting occasion. But we know it can be a little bit stressful for families. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things you can expect and things you might want to address ahead of time. So first, some of the everyday things, and we cannot stress number one enough. Some stress, some anxiety, some self-doubt is all very normal, and he needs to know that that's really normal. This might be one of the first times that your son has felt out of his own league or a little overwhelmed or big fish, small pond, or vice versa. Little fish, big pond. It's time now to talk to them about those feelings, normalize those feelings, but also help him understand when those feelings could be too much, what to do, where to go, and when is it actually too much. So really important conversation on number one, which can actually lead into number two, which is time management. I know we have spent a lot of time through their high school years. You have talked to them about time management and setting alarms and working ahead and using a calendar or a planner. We know you're having these conversations. They're worth having again because no one's actually going to be there to knock on their door and say, hey, you were supposed to get up 25 minutes ago, or who can call ahead to their class and say, oh, my son's running late. Not an option anymore. And so what do? How do they preempt this so it doesn't happen? But also, what do they do if it does? What happens if he's 10 minutes late to class or 20 minutes late to class because he overslept? How does that work in college? So having those conversations is important. But I think one of the biggest pieces of the conversation is actually that no one's going to remind them to do their work either. So here we use Schoology to set assignments or put in reminders, or a teacher will announce something in class, don't forget to do this reading because it's important for that test. In college, most professors hand out a syllabus on day one. They might not even review the syllabus. And in it is all of the listings of the readings they need to do to stay on top of things. This is even more important if this class is only based off of a midterm and a final. And if they had just stayed on top of the things by going to class and doing the readings, they'd be fine. But they may not even look back at the syllabus to say, oh yeah, I needed to do that. So talking to him ahead of time about how some of these things could be set up so they know what to expect can really help them set up their own system for time management. Then we've got participate and try new things. They need your encouragement sometimes for this, especially because in college, they're going to encounter so many different kinds of classes that they have never had the opportunity to take before. For example, photography. Maybe they want to take a photography class. Great. Maybe they want to try an anthropology class. Maybe they are just going to go totally left of center for them and try something that they have never even heard of. But it's a class they can take towards graduation. They're interested in trying it out. And so encouraging them to do that, but also participating in new things. There might be a movie night on the main lawn with a bunch of other students or other freshmen. Encourage him to go do that. Maybe he's not sure how to make friends and he's struggling with that. Give him some suggestions of things he could try. Giving him the resources and where to go to ask questions too can be really helpful when it comes to trying out new things and making friends. This might also lead to them finding new passions, which is always really exciting and such a great time to do that while they're in college. Number 4, college is harder than high school. While Ghost does an excellent job in trying to create scenarios for your son to have as real life college experience as possible, there's simply no way to truly prepare coming out of high school for college. It's just a completely different setup and world. And so telling him that it's okay to see college as harder is a good thing, because sometimes they come out of here thinking, well, I should be fine. I'm going to be fine. Everybody else is fine. It seems like all the other guys who have ever graduated from Ghost are all fine. And on the days where they feel like they're struggling or a class is really hard, they need to have heard from you that college is harder than high school and it's okay to struggle here and there. And then give him ideas of how he can catch back up or where he can go to get help. Explain to him about office hours for professors. Those simple things really make a huge difference when they are struggling. Number 5, think about setting up an Uber or Lyft account for them. You may have one on your phone that you've used with them, but this is probably the first time that potentially late at night they need to get home, but they can't just call you, and they may not have a friend who has a car, or they're in a scenario where they cannot drive. And so making sure they have safe transportation, because they might forget they can call the campus security for a lift or for a walking escort. So giving them an option. But you also might want to lead into number 6, setting boundaries on how that account is used. So it shouldn't be used just for him to get from his dorm to his class every day, but that it's there in an emergency scenario or in a scenario where he may not feel safe or comfortable. But this is where number 6 is so important in setting boundaries, setting expectations for what you can do, what you will do, what you won't do, and what you expect him to handle. We're transitioning him into adulthood, and this is such a nice way to do that because it's an in-between. He can still call you for support and help. He can still say, I don't understand, I don't know, what should I do? But then you can give him suggestions, ideas, and say, okay, now you make decisions. And so coming up with those boundaries and expectations before he heads off to college can really help both you at home and him at school. Next, let's talk about a few of the basics your son probably needs to know, may not already know. We learned this year as we were talking to your sons that they're not sure how to set a budget and work within one. And I think most of them are willing to work within one, but they actually don't even know how to get to that point. And so talking to him about that, and what is he going to do for money in college? Is he working? Does he have his own bank account? Is he getting a stipend from you? What is that expectation? And then how do we budget it so that we always have some money in the account? Second step, though, is to talk about credit cards. So whether he has one or not, it's worth having the conversation so that he does not get one, let's say in college, and not realize how to use it and what happens if you don't use it properly. If he's going to be using a credit card that's on a family account, talking to him about what your expectations and boundaries there are. And so these can be really important conversations. With that and the expectations and setting that budget, if your son wants $20 so he can go to the movie with his friends and he doesn't have it in his account, what's he going to do now? What is your expectation as a family about what he should do now? Does he just not go? Does he use the credit card? What is that expectation? What are his options? Have that conversation. Number 3, can you review with him what is a loan? How does it work? And is it worth it to take a loan? Because, of course, it's not always worth it to take a loan. We reviewed this in class. It seemed to really kind of connect with them, but at the same time, we recommend you continue talking to him about that because this is something that he has to think about each year for his 4 years in college, and of course, so many different venues down the road in life. So that is something we recommend you have another conversation with him about. Number 4 makes us laugh a little bit, but it is so important. How to actually do laundry. If you ask the guys if they know how to do laundry, many of them will raise their hands. But if you ask them what should be hot, what should be cold, what kind of laundry detergent, can you use bleach, those kinds of questions, they can't answer the next step. So have a conversation with him about how to do laundry so that he's prepared for that when he gets to college. And number 5 is a hard one to teach, but probably good conversation points. How to live with others. Many of our sons and young men do not share rooms anymore at home. And so sharing a room with someone else can be really hard. And having a conversation with your son about how to be a good roommate can go a long way. Just for example, picking things up off the floor that are theirs, not just to keep it clean, but so that it's not necessarily in the way of others. Or how to talk to a roommate about being up late when you need to rest because you've got a test tomorrow. So there's all different little things, but having some of those conversations as time goes on over the summer, things will come up, and this is a really good topic about how to live with others. Next, we do recommend talking about some of the tough topics. And we realize that your sons are probably going to roll their eyes or cringe a little as you say any things to him, but they are really important. And number 1 and number 2 here really roll into number 3. So having a conversation about alcohol and drugs. This is a conversation that not only revolves around what is the law around these things, but also what your expectations are as a family. Sometimes the most impactful thing you can do is to talk to your sons about what your expectations are. And if they do find themselves in a scenario where they're surrounded by them, what decisions would you hope they make? Maybe sharing your own personal experiences if you're comfortable. It's good for them to know the good and the bad about all of these things because they're going to encounter them again as a whole different way in college and a whole different set of freedoms. And so having those conversations is really important. Number 2 is also equally as important with sex and protection and having that conversation with your son. Again, what are your personal expectations? Then maybe talk to him about what his expectations are for himself. You know, how does he see this fitting into who he is and his goals in life? And so number 1 and number 2 are so important when it comes to that decision-making process. But it also leads into number 3, social responsibility. This is not just about social media and maybe not posting something about a friend or, identifying your location online, things like that. This is about what is my responsibility to others around me? So for example, your son may find himself at a party and a friend of his drinks so much that he has passed out. What does your son do? What is your son's responsibility to him? And then also with that, what is your expectation of your son? Will you support your son if he's the one making the phone call for 911, which might mean he gets in trouble too? Does he have his own expectations for himself in that scenario? What does he think he might do? It's really good to have this conversation ahead of time so that in that panic moment, he knows where he stands for himself, for his family, for his school, for his friend. We don't want them to be making those decisions in the moment. This is a really good place to make good decisions about what I will do in these scenarios. It's not perfect, but having the conversations ahead of time really can help him be secure in who he is and what his responsibility and role is in his community. So we encourage you to think about that. There are a few other things to think about. This list could probably be a million times longer. So in this case, we're going to leave it with these top 4 that we've heard from families and students who have already gone on to college. Number 1, FERPA and other privacy forms. A FERPA form is similar to HIPAA. So your son, when he's 18 and off to college, he gets to decide if you have access to his college records, to his grades, etc. Given that, you as a family should have a conversation about those privacy forms and grades, etc., so you can make the best decisions for yourselves. Next, books. Something that is so interesting is some people say, "Oh, we got our course list, we've got our book list. Let's buy it in July." But a professor could change his mind, for example, about which version of a book he's going to use or a completely different book. And here you've already paid for it and bought it. So you may want to wait till a little bit closer towards the school year actually starting. Also, there are a lot of places where your son can rent books or buy the books used and save so much money. So have him look into it. There's a lot of resources on college websites where he can look and say, oh, you know what, I should really think about this, but not this. I shouldn't buy it here. Maybe if I buy there, I need this edition. I don't need that edition. And what does that mean? And so definitely take a look at that with him. Next is doctor's appointments. So this is something you want to talk to your son and set expectations ahead. Things like general annual appointments, dentist appointments, what happens if you're sick, what is the expectation as a family, what does your insurance cover, where does he go if he's sick, where does he go if he needs medication, where does he go if he needs a checkup, is it something you're going to more so handle together as a family each summer while he's on your insurance, and then where does he go when he's sick at school, does he go to the clinic at school? Does he go to urgent care? Does he go straight to the hospital? Having that conversation ahead of time will really help, I think, all of you, rather than kind of that panic moment when he wakes up one day and he's sick. So number 4, and this is one of the big ones, you cannot call the college or the professor or the dean of student life unless you have a serious and legitimate concern about your son. Right? And you are also welcome to call when it comes to financial aid or billing. The hard part here is that there's so many more parents calling the college, emailing the professor on behalf of their students. It's shocking the amount of times it happens. You cannot be that person, but you can be a resource for your son. He's having trouble with a professor, give him suggestions about ways to handle that. He doesn't know where to find an answer about a piece of class that he's learning. Where can he go for help? How does he find a tutor? What is this thing called office hours? Maybe he can't even find a building. Suggest he get on the website and find the campus map and go from there. So giving him support so that he can help himself will be the number 1 piece. And that's really the point we're trying to make here with number 4. So we could ramble all day long about all the things to think about to ease that transition, but these are the biggest things to start with that we could think of from our colleagues on the college side. If you have questions, concerns, things you want us to add to this list for future presentations, please let us know. Reach out to us at any time. We will also be sharing with you an article that comes from a wonderful resource. The resource is called Grown and Flown. It is a website. It's a social media outlet as well. I believe it's on Facebook. And it was set up by a bunch of parents whose kids had gone off to school and had all these questions and concerns. And it's a network of people who have great answers, who have been through it before, who are here to support you. And so it's just a great resource. And we highly encourage you to just check it out. Grown and Flown, I believe it's grownandflown.com. And we will be sharing articles with you as well. So we thank you for taking the time to listen to our presentation today. Again, you can reach out to us at any time, and we cannot say it enough. Even once your son graduates, we are here as a resource for you and your son when it comes to their college process. So if there's anything we can do for you, please continue to be in touch. Thank you and have a great day.